All right, guys, just open the live stream here, and I will wait for a little bit here to see some people come online before we get started here. Yeah, just turned it on here, so it'll probably be a few minutes before we get a few people in here, and then we'll start to ramp things up here and take a look. Some interesting extended forecast stuff here, and of course we got the storm going into California right now, and it's pretty darn rainy day over parts of western Washington, western Oregon today as well. See how our interesting winter weather continues here. Looks like we got 86 watching now. I guess I go ahead and start up then, huh? I'll just show the chat, make sure that's going. You guys can hear me fine. Looks like sounds. I got somebody saying it sounds good. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so Alex Kaiser says the extended GFS looked wild, didn't it? And I haven't even looked at that yet, but the European extended looks really wild also. Yeah, watch out truck stops. Shady things going on in the truck stops. Yeah, this can be, you can double this chat room as a Seahawks therapy session here too. I'm not even sure. I mean, this is like, what, over 16 inches of rain since December 26th for San Francisco down there. It's just been an absolutely wild run. That was the rainiest, what was it, 16-day period ever? I can't remember exactly, but it was the rainiest 2+ week period ever for San Francisco, I believe. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard that. So what the latest is right now is we got the strong storm going into California. We got this weakening storm coming up over western Washington now. It's bringing some pretty good rainfall all day long here. A little bit of breezy conditions with this low pressure system here, but something I want to talk about here that concerns both Washington, Oregon, California, BC, and the Southwest USA here is looking at the extended forecast. It's been kind of wild here for the last few days, but we'll go into it now. You can see that last storm right here move through Southern California. And it gets out of there. Another system will clip California in the Pacific Northwest here, frontal system, as we go through midweek. Now we start to get some ridging across the area. You can clearly see it here at 18,000 feet. Lasts for a little while. Then you'll see the flow start to change here a bit as we get this ridge out over the Gulf of Alaska here. It looks like more of a northwesterly shot here. Maybe it's some convergence zone action across Pacific Northwest. But look at this thing kind of dig down out over California here too, and you notice what's happened with this big ridge here driving this northerly flow all the way down the west coast. And this looks like it might bring some interesting weather all the way down the west coast, including some Arctic air down through British Columbia and Washington. I mean, look at these lobes just kind of hanging out west here. This is still off in fantasy land, but this has been pretty persistent in the models. And actually, let's go ahead and duplicate this. We'll put the GFS on here as well. I have not looked at the GFS yet. Let's look at the 18Z first. Put that into motion. There goes the California storm. There goes the next system for the Pacific Northwest and kind of clipping California there as well. Let's see what happens here. I have not looked at this yet. There goes the ridge, and here we go, carving out that trough over the Southwest USA here. What happens now? What is the GFS showing here? So we're out 270. Kind of some interesting stuff moving on the backside of the ridge here. Ridge is hanging out across the Gulf of Alaska. Then it starts to bring, so there's some similarities to the extended, but right now it's going to be still a few days before we start to nail down any of these details really here, and before my confidence starts to go up. It's still basically a fantasy forecast right now. Let's look at the GFS mean actually here. So this is 0Z. This one is hot off the press. We're not going to look at that one yet. If I stay on long enough here, we'll take a look at that also. There goes that last system. The ridge comes. We get a little bit of a break here along the west coast. You can kind of see this ridge building here. So the European and the GFS agree with that, and this trough carving out over the Southwest USA there. European has this ridge backing up more here, and there it goes in the GFS ensemble run there. Okay, so that's kind of interesting looking there. Pretty big trough here for the west coast of North America shown there on the GFS. So some good similarity actually between the European and the GFS through the extended. So this is definitely something worth watching here as we go through the end of January. Very interesting stuff there. Let me catch up on the chat here. Thanks for all the kind words, everybody. Yeah, the reservoirs down there are looking good. Just hope that nobody's getting flooded out down there. Nobody's stuck up in the passes there going across the Sierra Nevada. That's been raining all day up here across western Washington, across a lot of it anyway. There's some videos going around of some kids tubing down the streets of Oakland. That is crazy. So yeah, under this scenario here, we would definitely get some cold air into the region. I'll show you some more model runs of the European here in a moment. And Brad says, explain how often the models come out. So like the GFS and the European, they run every 6 hours here. So that you'll get one at 18Z, 0Z, 06, and 12Z. And so you subtract 8 hours from this. So if you see this 18Z there, you know it's 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. But once we go back and we jump forward in the springtime, that'll come out at 11 a.m. here. So these run 4 times a day. The NAM runs 4 times a day also. There are some high resolution models that run much more. The RAP runs every 3 hours. There's a high resolution rapid refresh that runs every single hour. It's kind of a useful tool in itself, but it is much more of a short-term forecast. Yeah, what's with that down there? We saw that when we drove down there. We saw a lot of homeless camps out in the middle of rivers that were actually flooding and whatnot, and it did not look like that was a safe place to be, but that was interesting. I guess that would be a place where they would get bugged less versus being in the middle of a city or in a park or something like that, but that was pretty crazy. Common Conservative says something about the topsoil. That's one of the weird things about being down there too. When we were down there during the flooding down towards Santa Barbara and Ventura and Oxnard, you could just smell the soil coming off, the runoff just coming off of the hillsides there as it was flooding. It was just, that was pretty wild. Yeah, we were considering actually staying in a shelter down there, but we actually got out, and then right behind us, I guess 101 closed again. Highway 101 closed again. And people got stuck there for about, 24 hours or so. So we were lucky. We got out just at the right time. We were able to get to Oxnard and stayed there that night. GFS is Global Forecast System. It's run by the USA, and the GFS has a lot of tasks. They have do a lot of other things too. So it's not quite as well supported as the European model. So the European model performs a little bit better. Not a lot, but it does do a little bit better as a general rule. Could not believe the wave action at La Jolla. How do you pronounce that? I forget already. I used to know how to pronounce that. But anyway, yeah, the wave action's been great up and down the coastline there in California. Yeah, the landslides down there are no joke for sure. La Jolla, there you go. That's right. That's better. Brad's a old California pro down there. Yeah, how many people do we have in there? Oh, we're at 200 people already down here. That's cool. Yeah, there's king tides. When is that? That's coming up, I believe, in January. What, the 20th, 21st, and 22nd, I believe. And it looks like we're going to actually have high pressure when the king tides are here. So we're really lucky there. That is definitely a lucky thing. Okay, so now we've looked at that. Let's look at the jet stream here really quick. And you kind of see the tail end of this powerful jet stream going into California now. And watch what happens when that storm goes through here. One more system here. And then we start this ridging here. And you can see this, the jet does not extend across Pacific anymore. We're getting ridging here across the West Coast. We are going to get a few days break before things start to change up here. And put that into motion. And look how this jet stream starts acting like a whip here. Trough, ridge, trough. But watch what happens when we go on through the extended. Look at this jet stream. This is at 39,000 feet, by the way, too. This is kinking up all the way into the polar areas here. And this is going to drive down some Arctic air, or at least it's been showing that in the model runs here the last few days. So you can kind of see that powerful jet stream right off the West Coast. Kind of a classic signal for some Arctic air driving down all the way into California even. It usually modifies a lot by the time it gets there. But for the Pacific Northwest, this could mean some pretty cold air. And it is end of January, which tends to be one of our cooler times of the year too. So it lines up here. It's a good time to get cold air if you're a cold air lover. Any chance of low elevation snow in Southern California? Well, you can never say never, but historically that is a very rare feature, getting snow down to the lower elevations of California there. Increase of rats nesting in people's engines to escape the flood. That is interesting. Wow. Yeah, I'm looking forward to some studies about that Hunga Tonga blast there to see what. I know a lot of put a lot of water vapor into the atmosphere, and I'm kind of wondering what kind of actual effects that has on the atmosphere. I'm kind of interested to see some studies about that. But yeah, if you guys are wondering, here's a culmination of the Doppler radars. You can see all the winter storm warnings up here. There's actually a winter storm weather advisory here, even for the Grapevine outside of Los Angeles. Let's look at that one really quick here. Is that going to pop up? Nope, doesn't like it. There we go. Yeah, they talk about even including the Grapevine on I-5 there as you go north out of Los Angeles there. But they do mention it's a pretty low percentage that actually happens. But there will be some low snow levels going through California. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired today already. Was out filming the orcas here in the Puget Sound today. We saw them for a little bit. So let's take a look at that. I'll show you some other maps here. This is at 5,000 feet, 850 millibars here. And you can see North America, Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada here. Put that into motion here, and there goes the last of the storm systems moving through there. Then we get some ridging across the area here. We get a little bit of a break. Then we start to bring some cooler air down across the region again here. Get some ridging out over the Pacific. And look at some of this air moving down across British Columbia, Alberta, Oregon, California. I mean, this is plain nuts right here. This would be a pretty severe Arctic blast across some of the region here. This is pretty intense. And putting that all the way in through 360 hours, we're in a strong north flow here with some very cold air over the western U.S. I caution you right now that these are very fickle at this time frame here too. You can see we have to go way out to, what is it, about hour 200 plus to start to see this pattern emerge. So you got to be really careful with this. This is purely a fantasy forecast right now. I'm not saying anybody's going to get some big snowfall or some lowland snowfall or very cold temperatures, but this is a signal that's been showing for a few days now. And you can clearly see it here. This scale is pegged off scale here. You're negative 20 Celsius below average for a big portion of the west here. Thunder, lightning, and small hail, heavy rain in Sacramento today. Very nice. Las Vegas weather. Maybe I'll do a Las Vegas or a Nevada briefing here once. I actually have a lot of viewers that's for some reason in Phoenix, Arizona, so maybe I'll do an Arizona briefing at some point. Some decent snow falling right now in Big Bear. Yeah, I think what is it? Is ATX is it's closed for a couple of days. I think that radar is down up here in Western Washington. It's interesting that they do that in the winter time too. You think they do that in the summer when things were much quieter. So I'm trying to catch up on the chat here for a little bit. Reflect the Sun, thank you very much for your generosity. Washington State snowpack projections. Right now, the snowpack was doing pretty well. I mean, we were doing 100 to 120% around much of the state. And I know that areas northwest and north of Spokane, some of the higher terrain of Washington, were actually, almost to like record levels of snowfall out there from what I was seeing, and well above the historical average. So we're doing pretty good across Washington State right now. I mean, as long as you can install rainwater collection, it's not against any ordinance around your location. I used to do it here in Washington until I tapped into a spring in my backyard that was going to be noticed to anyone. Yeah, it's fun to look at the extended forecast here, but you got to remind everybody what's going on. Now let's take a look at this. Watch this. This is 2 meter temperature anomaly. Anomaly is different from normal. And here we're going to go out. Actually, let's do a different view of things here. Let's go out to I want to go out to North America. So here we're at 120 hours here, and you can see it remains fairly below average here across some of the southwest here. I mean, it's not frigid Arctic air cold, but it is below average here. But then watch what happens as you start to bring that colder signal down across BC. And the European keeps showing this. And I don't know what to make of it, because it's like when the European latches onto something like this, there's usually something to it. And the GFS has been hinting at the same pattern also. So you can see here, you're negative 17 Celsius temperature anomaly. So we pegged the scale here, and look at this. Look at these temperatures. This is nuts. I mean, you're bringing Arctic air potentially all the way down into Nevada and Arizona. I mean, it's going to modify by the time it gets into the lower terrains, but this is kind of an interesting signal here. It's a ways out there, so it's still fantasy, but it's definitely catching my attention. Brian Anderson, welcome to second channel support. Small tornado around Harold, California yesterday. Bakersfield, California. It's raining. So Ryan says the BC viewers, our North Shore is about 70% of normal. We are off to a great start, but milder weather as we adult. So I guess some portions of BC, British Columbia, are not doing quite as well. That's good information. Thank you, Ryan. The East Cascades was actually doing well too. Can I find that map right now? Oh, there it is. Snow water equivalent here. So you can see here a lot of areas across the Cascades are right about average. 100% would be average. And look at even down towards. The problem with the Southern Oregon area, though, and the east slopes down here is that they don't get as much snow as you do when you go further north across the Oregon, Washington Cascades. So this doesn't equal a ton of, it's not a huge amount more than usual of snowfall, but it is above average here, so that's a good thing. And you can see places like Eastern Oregon, Idaho doing well too. But like Ryan said, some places for BC are actually below average at this time right now. But yeah, I mean, pretty shocking signals here coming up in the extended forecast. That would include the entire West Coast, as you can see there. That's a pretty strong signal. So yeah, make of that what you will. It's strictly fantasy right now. Let me catch up on the chats here. Jordan Trumpner, thank you for your generosity. Did the insurance write off the Tesla? What is up with that? Used car market collapsing. Elon just screwed recent Tesla buyers. Way to go, Elon. So I know they were looking at it because I could see on the Tesla app, I could see them opening and closing doors and whatnot. So I know they were doing the evaluation on the car, but I don't know if they have written it off yet or not. I don't know if they're going to try to fix it or what. I hear that they're really conservative with trying to fix cars now because repairs can run over budget really easily. Did I go off of that? Let's see. Yeah, Colorado doesn't look like it's doing bad. I mean, you look out towards Colorado. New Mexico is kind of below average there, but look at Utah, Nevada, not doing bad as well. I don't know how much this is actually snowfall. It's just some of the higher peaks probably here across Nevada. Montana's not doing bad also. Wyoming, at least average or above. Yeah, the heaviest rain is coming for California as we go. So let's back up here. Let's do total precipitation in inches. This is the latest European, the 18Z. You can see California down here. Let's back up. But as we go, what time is it? It's about 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock. So you can see the rain is just kind of just now started here. 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can see the rain starting to pile up through tomorrow morning pretty well. Pretty good shot of moisture coming here for the higher terrain there east of San Diego. Oh, Kevin Moore. So the Tesla, yeah, I parked it and then it slid down the icy hill and it smashed the back up into a telephone pole. So they're looking to see if they want to total it or not. Okay, I'll try to stop answering I'll try to stick to weather here too. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, might as well pile it up while you can. As long as the levees don't start breaking down there, you're pretty good in most areas. It's actually been, I mean, I know that people have lost their lives and whatnot, but you have to have the rain. Otherwise the state would just die. So it's just kind of a give and take that just we have to deal with. And we just have to prepare as many people as we can when these systems move in and just hope for the best, basically. Like we mentioned earlier, the reservoir levels have been doing really well. I mean, Lake Shasta went from like a third to 50%. That's a huge jump in just a couple of weeks. It's a really big jump. How is the weather in Oakview, California? Kay Lindsay, member for 8 months, second tier. Very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you for support. What is your confidence that cooler weather late in January, Pacific Northwest weather? Michael, sorry about the weather. Mobile. Yeah, I'll have to get a new Tesla maybe or something. We'll see how that goes. But every single day that we continue to see this come up, actually, we can do this too. Let's back up all the way to so this is all the way out towards yesterday. So you can see yesterday on the right. Actually, this is yesterday afternoon on the right. This is this morning for today on the left here. You can kind of see it has the cooler pattern and the ridging over the Pacific. So the confidence is increasing that the ridging is coming. But the Europeans really just starting to latch on to the much colder solution here. But it's been kind of showing this coming for a little bit now. For a couple of days, it's been hinting at the ridging over the Pacific. And that's really what I'm most concerned about now. I mean, you can look at these temperature anomalies here, and this doesn't mean much to me. If you don't have that ridging out here, which we do, then it would mean much less. But right now, we're looking for the ridging out here and looking for that north flow in the pattern change versus not worrying too much about details of temperature anomalies or anything like that. But with every run, confidence will increase, but still, I mean, before this very cold air gets here, we're looking at, Friday, January 27th, this is still 12 days out. So anything at 12 days out in the immediate weather is going to be pretty low confidence. Okay, so Garrett, we were through Oakview. Okay. Levees looked fine. That's good. Oakview, California doing fine. Yeah, you guys, there's that weather force thing down there too. There's some interesting forecasters down there in Southern California that really, or around the state of California, that really hype up the weather here too. So yes, stick with me here or listen to your local National Weather Service down there in California or across anywhere, really, Pacific Northwest, whatever. Don't listen to those hype machines. But here, I haven't been looking at I need to stop. I need to look at this really quick. We got to look at the GFS again. I want to see what it was showing. Let's do 2 runs ago also, and let's back up. This is the same thing here. I want to see what the GFS is showing. Actually, we got to redo that here. We got to go to 18Z, and we're going to back up all the way to 4 runs before here. I want to see what kind of agreement the GFS has been having within itself here. This is the ensemble mean here on the GFS. Piero Brewer, thank you very much. Oh, top weather supporter. Look at that. Very generous. Thank you, sir. So putting that into motion, let's see. We're going out 256. This is surface 2-meter temperature anomaly here. And you can see that West Coast cooling down there as we go on into the extended. So the GFS has been on this pattern change coming here. And you can see that warmer air over the Aleutians here, Western Alaska versus kind of the west portion of North America. Looks pretty chilly here. Now let's do this. Let's back up to this morning versus the 18Z here. You guys kind of see that the GFS believes in this colder weather coming here. But again, this is pretty far out here, and we're waiting to see some consolidation here. I want to see several days of this before I start sounding alarms, for example. Oakview is where we flew the drones over the river bridge Tuesday morning. Yeah, that showed up on the NBC Nightly News, if I'm not mistaken. I think Garrett caught that. Yeah, I need to do that. I need to get to a slower period in the weather here and go over the basics and break down each individual model, what time they come out, what these individual parameters mean. Just explaining certain things, like things that I take for granted. Sometimes people don't know what I'm talking about. Like today, somebody got confused when I said 10-meter wind speed, and I should have probably just said surface wind speed, for example. It's stuff like that. And when I say millibar heights or Zulu times, it kind of confuses people as well. Kevin Moore, basic channel support. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, the Pacific North American oscillation is pointing towards a pattern change also. Yeah, it's crazy. You know, it's a different world in California when it rains. I remember living down there I lived down there for about 4 months, 4 to 6 months, something like that, back in the 90s. And just a little bit of rain made it kind of crazy. The traffic would get all messed up, and you know, even small amounts of rain, it seemed like, comparative to the Pacific Northwest, caused flooding and mudslides and everything. Yeah, Kevin, you've been around a long time. Thank you very much. You've helped build the channel. Trying to catch up here on the chat a little bit. But yeah, looks like a colder pattern might be returning here towards the end of January here, and that would affect places, you know, all the way down the West Coast as well. It's going to be kind of interesting to see what tonight's European control run says. How far back can we go here? It's not going to let me go all the way back, so we're kind of stuck there. Let's bring up the Canadian here. How far out does the Canadian mean go again? We'll check it out. So I'm running this morning's Canadian model, the ensemble mean versus itself the previous afternoon of yesterday. And as we go out further here, let's see if it's showing anything similar. It's showing that colder signal. You can see it here. But it's kind of wonky looking. It's probably just, I mean, it has the signal for a cold Western North America there, but it's kind of a wonky looking signal. It'd probably be better if I just looked at the upper, a little bit higher here. We'll look at 18,000. 18,000 feet, 500 millibars. Here goes that storm. Here goes the next one midweek. Going to clip the Pacific Northwest and California. Not too big of a deal. Ridging builds across the area. Gives us a break here. Then a little bit of north flow showing up on the west coast of North America there. The ridge stays strong. It does build that ridge out here, and that's kind of what I want to see, like I said before. And you can see that would bring some troughing here into the Pacific Northwest and down the west coast there. So it does have the signal as well. The Canadian is showing that as well. So all three main major models are showing that. Do I think we'll see another freezing rain event in February? Probably not. Freezing rain events here are exceedingly rare. The one previous to this 2022 freezing rain event was, I think, 2012. So that was about almost an 11-year difference there, or 11-year time frame there. And the previous one to that was, I think, 1996 for significant icing here, like for Seattle, for example. So they're pretty rare here across Pacific Northwest. The exception, of course, is Portland. They have a sea level gap there. Let me see if I can show that here. If you zoom in here at Portland, you can see the gorge is a sea level gap, basically, and cold air can make its way from behind the Cascades back into Portland, can get some low level cold air trapped in the area there, and it can be reinforced with this easterly winds into Portland there. And so they get much more ice than Seattle does on the most part. What happens with Seattle is you'll end up getting cold air into the region, and you just kind of get a warm system over the top of that, bringing precipitation, but you're not really reinforcing it much once it gets going here into the Seattle area. Portland can get reinforced, and it can stay pretty chilly there for a few days at a time, actually. Can you show more of the jet stream? Yeah, we showed a little bit of it right off the bat here. I'll show, let's actually do this. We'll back up. We're going to do the 12Z European here, and we're going to do Northern Hemisphere. So this is a wide look at the entire Northern Hemisphere. You can see Africa's over here. There's China. There's Hawaii. There's California. There's Florida here. There's Greenland. This is the North Pole. There's Alaska. Now, if we go down to upper air wind and we go to, let's just go to 300 millibars here. This is what, about 30,000 feet. 250 should be 34,000 feet, and 200 millibars would be 39. So here's the jet stream. You can see it around the mid latitudes across the Northern Hemisphere here. And this is that storm system currently barreling down into California as we speak there. Then the one more here moving to the Pacific Northwest, kind of clips California there. Then the ridge, you can see, that's why we're going to get a break here. Powerful jet stream coming off the coast of Asia here, the west coast of Asia. Japan is kind of a feature of La Nina, excuse me. La Nina, we tend to build up more warm water here in the Western Pacific. And with that warm water, you cast a pretty tight gradient with colder air over Siberia and the North Pole. So it tends to bring a stronger jet stream. That's all the jet stream ever is it's just a gradient. It's a temperature gradient between cold and warmer air over the equator. So that's why this jet stream usually forms here in La Nina years. During El Nino years, you tend to get warmer over the equatorial Pacific and towards the coast of South America. So you get warmer water there. And so the jet stream is more persistent right into California there. And it tends to bring the entire Pacific Northwest above average temperatures as well. But it does not mean that you can't get individual periods within each season that will bring snowfall, for example, or big rainstorms or things of that nature. Things will switch up during the season no matter what phase of ENSO you are in. But yeah, let's put this into motion here. There goes that jet stream. I'm just going to let this play through here. Is it loading up? It's kind of being finicky here with me. Okay. But you can see how the jet stream is just kind of a persistent feature in the Northern Hemisphere, especially during winter and fall. It's always there, but it becomes weaker because the temperature gradient becomes weaker as well. Over the North Pole, once you start bringing the sun up into the Northern Hemisphere, the more direct rays of the sunlight get up into above the equator, you start to have a warmer Northern Hemisphere here. So the gradient of the jet stream will lessen here as you go on into spring and summer. And then it starts to build back up again as you get into fall and winter. But you can see that pretty persistent jet stream off the west coast of Asia there. You can see how it keeps redeveloping itself here as we have the warmer than normal air here over the Western Pacific due to that warmer ocean water there. And by the way, Siberia is just bitter cold right here too. Let's actually look at that as well. This is right off the surface, about 2,500 feet here, 925 millibars. And look at the bitter cold over Russia right now. I mean, they need to share some of this with us. And something will actually be interesting to look at here before I check back on the chat here in a moment. This is, again, same thing, 925 millibars. If we put this into motion, let's see where that air develops and comes from. Where does this pattern come from? It probably comes from some kind of cross-polar flow, but put this out into the extended here. And there goes that cold air. Can you see it spilling down into Western North America here? That's the cold air that the European has been showing here. So let's see, let's trace this backwards. Where does this air come from? You can kind of see its origins here as it moves almost over the top of this ridge here. So you'll see it come here and come off the North Pole here and start down into the Northwest Territories, Alberta, BC here. And you can just see, you can imagine if this just offsets a little bit to the east, the Pacific Northwest gets very little Arctic air. And if it stays too much out over the Gulf of Alaska here, you're going to get cyclogenesis, and you probably just develop stronger storm systems and keep the Pacific Northwest warmer in that way. So it's a very finicky track. Has to be just perfect into the Pacific Northwest to get Arctic air into the lowlands. And you can imagine that would go doubly for Southern California. It's just an extremely rare phenomenon to get air cold enough all the way down into like places like San Francisco and Southern California, it's just really tough. You have to take a perfect trajectory with some very cold air, and then you have to tap colder air aloft with some convection usually. It's convective showers in the winter times and can sometimes bring small hail and frozen precip of that nature around some of the lower elevations of California. But for the most part, it's very difficult to do. And you can kind of see it there. This would have to take the perfect track into the Pacific Northwest to really spawn, winter storms here for Seattle and Portland, per se, or Southwest BC. Okay, let me catch up on the chat here for a moment. Yeah, imagine flying from Japan to Hawaii, or Japan and Hawaii to the Pacific Northwest. And I've been hearing about a lot of our dispatchers at Alaska Airlines talking about the headwinds going from the West Coast out to Hawaii out there. That's always a challenge. February 1989 was one of the, believe it was the strongest Arctic high ever in North America recorded. That was an extreme Arctic outbreak. I mean, that really hammered Seattle as well. With El Nino, will California typically receive more rain? That is usually the case. I'll do more research on that. I'm much more in tune with what ENSO, La Nina, El Nino has to do with the Pacific Northwest, but I know that it does typically bring rainier and stormier conditions to California. Yes. The spillway was totally rebuilt, and Oroville is only 55% of capacity today. What was that about? What was that? I missed some of this chat here. Oops, I'm backing up here again. What is cyclogenesis? That's basically just when a storm develops. So if we back up here, what's going on right here across, just off the shore of California here, is you're getting kind of cyclogenesis forming right here. Just the development of a storm. It's a cyclone developing. Yeah, Weatherwell's a good tool. What's the outlook for Sierra snowpack in California heading into spring? Sierra's doing really well. I mean, virtually the entire mountain range down there is well above 200% normal precipitation. A lot of areas are 300-400%. It's doing really well. How many people do we have in here now? Oh, 500 people. Nice. So this is 8 p.m. This is supposed to be 9. Yeah, so there's probably some winds just now kicking up along the higher terrain down here in California with the storm system moving through. Check out this storm out here. Pretty intense. Going to bring some pretty good rains down for Southern California as well. Yeah, there's some extremely deep snow up there across some of the Sierra Nevada. Let's actually look at that here really quick. Since we've got a lot of people talking about it in there, we can go down here, we can go to snow depth. And they really need to do something about their scales sometimes too, because you can see it goes to 48 inches here. Widespread area, 48 plus inches, 4+ feet. Some areas up over 5 feet of snowfall. And there's probably, including new snowfall up there, there's probably even, yeah, like we've been saying, there's probably quite a bit more than that for some areas as well. In fact, I'm not even sure. That's got to be underdoing. There's no way there's only 48 inches of snow in some of those areas up there. But if we go out in the model run there, you can kind of see it's up towards 70 inches. But yeah, I think that's underdoing it. I'm not sure why that is, but the Sierra Nevada is doing very well snowpack-wise. Yeah, it's when it snows down there, there's a lot of moisture content. The ocean is warmer down here off of California. And you can really build up snowpack quite well when it does snow. Just typically areas like Pacific Northwest get more storms, but the Sierra can get just absolutely buried in some of these snowfalls. Yeah, I'll try to do that more where I talk about low pressure versus high pressure. A trough is basically just low pressure. A ridge is basically just high pressure. Reflect the sun. Thank you for your generosity. Do you think that floods the area you were live streaming from near Santa Barbara? I mean, there was flooding going on down there. Yeah, there was landslides. We filmed some of that with the drone down there. You could kind of smell it. You could smell the dirt just kind of coming off the hillsides. It was pretty nuts. And we were on 101. It was pretty crazy just seeing, it wasn't even the main river there, but it was flowing over the street there, and they totally closed it down. We were pretty close to where the water was crossing, so we were pretty early on after they had shut down the highway. There were some cars that just got stranded out there, but there was some pretty good flooding going on out there. Generally, low pressure is rainier, yes, is more inclement weather, and high pressure is generally better weather, yes. So you can kind of see here that this would be a ridge and this would be a trough. Almost like an ocean wave where you talk about kind of a ridge or a crest versus a trough. Percent of April 1 average 117%. Percent of normal for this date 245%. That's before tonight's storm. Yeah, this will be a good snowmaker up there too. This is going to bring some fairly low snow levels. This has a pretty southerly track. So you can see this one's going in south of the Bay Area, even this low pressure system. So there's going to be some pretty low snow levels. They were talking about it going all the way down to 3,000 feet across some of the Sierra Nevada. It's probably going to catch some people off guard. Nathan asking about the cold pattern coming to Washington. So we got some people just now coming in here, and I'll show you what the European recently was showing here. Let's see. I'll just do this and I'll back out here. We'll check out the European. We'll show everybody this again. A little bit of a repeat here, so bear with me. But this is at 5,000, 2 meter temperature actually. Let's go to that first. 2 meter temperature anomaly as of this morning. The 12Z, which is the 4 a.m. European run, it only runs this out to 360 hours for the 12Z and the 0Z. The 06Z and the 18Z runs only go out to 90 hours or 144. So they run 2 runs a day where they run them out 360 hours, which is 15 days. So you put that into motion here. And now watch what happens when we start going over 200 hours. You notice this cold air starting to show up here across British Columbia here. It just kind of gets reinforced here in this latest European run. This is kind of a ridiculous run here. But yes, we do have some signals that we will be returning to colder weather here, really across the entire West Coast. As you can see, this would bring additional systems down through California, Oregon, Washington, BC, Nevada, Arizona, Idaho, Montana. This would be a pretty intense Arctic system here. Rain in Lake Chelan, Washington. Very nice. Jonas Miller is in the chat. Very good. Thumbs up to Jonas Miller there. Jonas lives. Yeah, I'd love to see another round of snowfall here. I could do without the ice. I don't want to have my next car destroyed, but yeah. Pacific Northwest weather lever is here. Trying to catch up on the chat a little bit here. You're at 3,120 feet. That's higher than our Snoqualmie Pass here in Washington. The twerculator. So if you have snow on the ground at 3,100 feet there in the Sierras, is that correct? Oh, you want it to snow. Yeah, it might. You might see some snowfall down to 3,000 feet there in the Sierra Nevada. But yeah, for those of you just joining us, we just went through it there, but Pacific Northwest kind of looking like it might turn colder here towards the end of January. No promises, strictly fantasy right now, but really all the models are kind of hinting at that possibility. Yeah, Nathan Wolf, that was pretty intense there, hearing those rocks coming down that creek. I mean, it did not look like a very big creek, and that thing was full, and I've never seen water. I don't know that I've ever seen water flowing that fast in such a small creek. It was really intense, and I don't even want to know how big that rock was. Probably a 500-pound boulder that hit that bridge. Yeah, Matt Turner, it's a good question about January models bearing fruit. Cutoff lows be more likely to develop up the California coast and wet. Yeah, there's all that potential. If you start getting into You know, you can kind of see the jet stream here as you go out into the future and driving this down the west coast. You can start to get storm systems along this jet stream all the way down the coastline. Yes, absolutely. That's a possibility. Potential colder coming up. That is correct. We just looked at what here? We looked at 2-meter temperature here. Let's look out at, let's do this. We'll go to upper air temperature. That's only going to do, so we'll show this one again here too, since we've got new people joining the chat. This is at 5,000 feet, 850 millibars here. You can see transition between trough and ridging here, but this is temperature again. And now we're going off into fantasy land here, and look at some of this cold air moving down across the Yukon, Northwest Territories, BC, Washington, all the way down the west coast there. And you can see with this cold air spilling out like that, you could easily spin up storms all the way down through the Mexican peninsula down there, Baja, California. Really, the entire west coast is susceptible to storms at this point. It is a drier than normal flow, though. It's not like you're going to be looking at atmospheric rivers or anything of that nature out of this. But you could be looking at some interesting storms. Jonas Miller's in it for the money, not the science. Trying to catch up on all these chats here. Sorry about that, guys. Well, sometimes Fantasyland can be Fantasyland can be 3 days out, or it can be 20 days out. It depends on really the pattern setting up here. So this is going to be fantasy for at least probably another week here. Because it's, like I said before, if you're just joining, to get this Arctic air into the region here, it's very difficult. As you guys know, it usually just doesn't happen out of the blue. It takes a very special setup to get Arctic air into it. West Coast sinkholes showing up everywhere. Yeah, that floodwaters can play havoc out there. Did you get your Tesla back? No, they're still doing the appraisal on it right now. So you're going to see if it's going to be totaled or not. What were we looking at here? Okay, I was looking at the actual 12 Zulu, the actual deterministic run here. This is not an ensemble run here, and I want to see if it showed any sign of colder air coming down. And right at the end of the run here, you can kind of see up here. And if I have a feeling if we go out to the upper air heights here, yeah, we're going to see this ridge building here. That's kind of the first step in bringing that colder air down into the region there. This ridging needs to back up a little bit and allow this north flow to get down into the Pacific Northwest here and down the west coast. But it's kind of the first signal of that. We'll see how this trends. Still fantasy, as we said. Is Cali going to have rain in the next couple of weeks? Well, basically, let's take a look at that, because we'll look at precipitation total. And after this first, actually, we'll go like this. We'll go 24-hour periods here. So here's the storm impacting California now. You can see 24-hour totals, pretty good amounts. Some of the Bay Area down towards Big Sur, Santa Cruz there, some of the Sierra Nevada down through Southern California are pretty good amounts, but watch when that kicks out of here. One more system goes down through Northern California, not too big of a deal there. And then look at, there's some ridging there, nice and dry. But look at the Pacific Northwest, gets another round of rainfall there. But California staying dry here all the way out through the 10-day period. So really just that one system tonight, but it is a pretty strong storm. Then another one's going to clip the area, but then it's going to dry out. You can clearly see this counterclockwise, clockwise rotation here off the coast of California, meaning that's high pressure right there. But there's still going to be systems riding over the top of that for the Pacific Northwest, though. But California is going to dry out here after these next couple of storms. Fairbanks, Alaska is currently, yeah, it's pretty chilly. Coastal Starlight from Emeryville to Vancouver. Very nice. Fairbanks, Alaska. Yeah, they're going to cool down a lot when that air starts rolling down in there too. Snow crowd time. Yeah, things get crazy really quick on this channel when the snow starts flying up here. Let's go over precipitation total since we're here as well. Let's watch it build up and then kind of dry out for California. There goes that first storm. Pretty good precipitation maker coming up through midweek here for places Pacific Northwest, west of the Cascades West. BC getting good amounts there, but you can see California just kind of freezes there. No more precip after these next couple of systems. And the first one's really going to be the main impact. Second one, just kind of a glancing blow here. $460 people in the chat. Let me catch up on the chat here for a moment. Jonas Miller. Does that make me a night crawler now that I got a corporate sponsor and Jonas Miller in here? Yeah, the east wind has been relentless in East Portland this winter. That is for sure. Well, if multiple models are giving the same signal, you start to get higher confidence for sure. Definitely get higher confidence. So the fact that the GFS and the Canadian are kind of showing that ridge and the cooler temperatures there for Northwest North America, it does give confidence. So it doesn't make it just like a fully wild fantasy forecast. There is something to it. I am pretty confident there is something to it. The problem is that sometimes, you can end up the Arctic air slides east of the Rockies, or it hangs out over the Gulf of Alaska, or something changes in that general thing. But for the most part, I do expect some kind of ridging to be nearby. The signal for that is pretty good, and models are pretty good at picking up on general ridge and trough position as a whole versus just individual systems. Eric Simpson, thank you very much. Shout out to Eleanor. Happy birthday, Eleanor. Where is Eleanor tonight? Clear Lake, my water level is coming up rapidly. Well, hopefully you stay out of that flood area. La Nina will likely die by spring. That is correct. In fact, let's do that really quick here. I haven't looked at this in a couple days here. Let's go to sea surface temperature anomalies. We'll scroll down here, 30-day animation. Actually, let's do this first. So this is just at the sea surface temperature. And you kind of see what I'm talking about here. You can see a little bit of green out here. This is not typical usually. This is colder than normal here across the coast of South America and out across the equatorial Pacific. And this really helps drive some of the weather all across the planet here, because you've got stronger than normal winds out of the east here. And this pushes all of this warm water towards the Western Pacific here. And when you do that, you tend to bring a stronger gradient. That's what we talked about earlier. There's cold air up over Siberia here, and there's warmer air here. So what happens is you have a stronger jet stream off the coast of Asia here, the west coast of Asia, or the Western Pacific, off the coast of Asia there, I should say, more accurately. But anyway, every day the sun moves by and it heats up the top layers of the ocean the most. Those winds kick that heated air towards the Western Pacific there. You get that gradient, you get the jet stream strongest here, and then you tend to get a variable jet stream downstream because of the stronger jet stream here, because of the temperature gradient based on La Nina. So when El Nino starts to show its face here in the next year or two, this is going to warm up out here. And we're going to have warmer water out across the Pacific and the Central Pacific here. So we're going to have a stronger gradient here. And that's going to bring this jet stream from the Hawaiian Islands, usually towards California or somewhere along the west coast of North America there. And of course, in each individual season there, that will vary, and you'll have some breaks in that jet stream, of course. So it's just kind of a rule. It's just kind of a general guideline. It's not a rule. I got my moderators in here. They're taking care of business very nicely. Yeah, it's another problem with getting Arctic in here, like Brad, Arctic air into the Pacific Northwest as well. Sometimes you get it in here and it's just more of a dry intrusion as well. Sometimes the trajectory is not correct and you're not getting its development of a system off the coastline. Rain all day in San Diego today. Love watching these reports. Thank you very much. How does Lincoln City, Oregon look tomorrow? Waves have been too high to be on the... Yeah, you guys are getting some good wave action out there. That was pretty impressive. Let me look at one more thing here. Let's look at 30-day. We'll do the sea surface temperature anomaly here, and you can clearly see it here. This one shows La Nina the best. La Nina is still in charge, but we are getting warmer conditions here along South America. Oh, yeah, you can clearly see it even over the last few days. It's really starting to warm up out here. You see that 30-day loop here? Put that into motion. I think El Nino is definitely in the cards here. If not next winter, then the following. I would be very surprised if El Nino does not come here in the next year or two. It's a classic, typical pattern here across the Pacific Ocean here. But yeah, you can see the above average temperatures across the Western Pacific here and across the Equatorial Pacific there as well. Yeah, if we're up to 30,000 now, I think now. Thank you very much, Verdane Horea. Does learning to read weather in one place translate into reading weather someplace else? Like when you said ridge and trough, would someone in Poland know? Yes, if you're talking to a meteorologist in Poland or in Europe or Africa or wherever, you're going to be able to talk to them about the meteorology of weather. Even though some places do call certain weather phenomena different things, like once you go off to the west of 180 degrees here, this is a cyclone. A tropical storm is a cyclone. Over here, a tropical storm is a hurricane. So just because certain areas call things different things, but the main technical terms in meteorology mean the same across the planet. So yeah, you'd be able to talk to anybody across the world. If they were a meteorologist, they would know exactly what you're talking about. That's, yes. The Eddy a cow. Wow. Okay. We're going to take a look at that, those wave heights. Okay. This is a pretty cool map here. So this is maximum individual wave height here. And you can see the wave height kind of moving in towards California there. Let's see if we can see that swell they're talking about for Hawaii. There's a pretty good swell there. And then, yeah, oh, okay. Yeah, there's pretty good swell coming there. Oh, that looks pretty interesting there towards the end of the run too. The thing about like Hawaii with the swell there too is it gets generated by storms usually out across the North Pacific here towards the Aleutians. So it gets a long track and they get a long time to really smooth out. So you get these nice, smooth, huge swells just blasting into the North Shore of the Hawaiian Islands. But yeah, that looks pretty good, especially at the end of the run there. But pretty good, a couple pretty good swells in the meantime also. You can actually look at this too. Significant wave height and direction will actually show you the swell direction. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer here. Will that show Hawaii? It does. But yeah, along the Oregon coast, this is what was going on. Still pretty good, some pretty good wave heights going on today, as you can see there. Southern California, you're going to get your shot here coming up on the day tomorrow. One more system, and then the relaxation. Look at this, just in time for the king tides too. That's a nice coincidence there. But yeah, the arrows show the swell direction. Pretty cool map there. Yeah, El Nino is going to be interesting because the planet usually trends quite a bit warmer during El Nino years. Yeah, there's a way to tell the amount of gallons of rain that have fallen in California as a whole. Generally, it's not really that difficult of a calculation, actually. every acre of land, if you put an inch of water as rainfall on an acre, that's 27,000 gallons. So if you calculate the entire acreage of California, and then you'd calculate what the average amount of rainfall across the state of California, it's a pretty easy calculation. And I came up with about 22 trillion, 400 billion gallons. And that was in about a 2-week period there. And it ended up being pretty accurate. I think somebody else calculated what actually fell as 24 trillion. So it's kind of a unimaginable number, but it's pretty fun to make those calculations and kind of actually see what's going on. I think the homeless camps are probably just getting wet down there. Yeah, you got to be careful about when you search, especially if you're getting a lot of runoff. The best time, of course, is, when you're dealing with flooded waters and whatnot, you can have a lot of like sewage in the water. I mean, you're dealing with all kinds of biological hazards out in the water there. I wouldn't be surfing in the flood waters for sure. Yeah, I think it ended up falling like somewhere around 24 trillion gallons. I made my estimate a little bit conservative. The entire Pacific Ocean wave heights. You can kind of see how the northern hemisphere, because we are in our winter season now, how our waves are more active versus the southern hemisphere. Kind of a good example there. And look at that. That'd be an impressive swell, man. Almost worth going out to Hawaii for that one there. Significant wave height and direction. Be a nice north swell. That thing would have a lot of time to smooth out there. Because like here in Washington, you go out to the beach and it's the storm is raging right offshore there, and you're just in a bunch of whitewater chop. I've surfed before, but I'm more of a swimmer. I was more of a swimmer out in Hawaii. I would just go out and swim, deep water swimming and stuff like that. But looking back on it, it's probably not very smart. You're not supposed to be swimming alone, even though I used to do that. I used to be way out there in the ocean sometimes. Probably not a very smart idea. Yeah, it was crazy. Like Brad mentions Newport Harbor down there, how the waters look different. I mean, we were off there, the water off the coast of Santa Barbara was just wild. It was just completely brown. And then you could see like the bluer ocean water, half a mile out in the ocean or however far it was. It was just nuts how much mud was running into the ocean. How about now taking a look here? Okay. Thank you very much, Scott, for your donation. Wrangle Star, welcome. Trying to read the chat here a little bit. Yeah, so I hear it's raining across Southern California right now. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, models are doing pretty good so far. You can see that rainfall just kind of barreling in. Oceanside, San Diego down there. Bay Area is getting their last big dose of rainfall here. Still raining outside at my house, it looks like, going on. I think we're going to dry out here across a lot of the Pacific Northwest tomorrow. Well, I guess BC is due for their round coming up here as this low moves north. A lot of winter storm warnings still going on across the Sierra Nevada here. Let's see. Travel could be very difficult to impossible. Blowing snow could reduce visibilities. Winds gusting 50 miles per hour. 8 to 14 inches. Eastern slopes of the Sierras, higher amounts above 9,000. So let's click on a little bit closer in here. Let's go to locally higher amounts to 4 feet. That's insane. That's pretty insane. That's pretty intense. Imagine 4 feet of snow at once. Did we hit 30,000? It looks like we did. I'm getting some congratulations. Thank you, everybody. I did see some of that Falcon Heavy launch. That's pretty cool. How I saw at least 2 of those rockets make it back down to the platform. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, Wrangle Star. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad he's in the chat. Welcome. 2 million subscribers. Maybe I'll get there in about 20 years. If I'm still alive. My daughter was telling me to do a giveaway to some of the members here on the channel here once we hit 30,000 subscribers. One of my weather photos or something here. I've got a printer here that prints out pretty well. A giant, what is it? A giant Canon printer over there. Yeah. So what are you guys seeing out there? Is anybody in California right now? I mean, is there any flooding going on still? And I know everything's really saturated here across the Bay Area. Southern California is probably doing a little bit better, but a lot of precip still running into that terrain, kind of concerning there. Hopefully we don't get any major flooding here down through the San Diego area. Fox 12 weather says 23rd snow showers for Portland. They're already putting that in their forecast, huh? So what are we? That's about 8 days out. Not bad. But yeah, for those of you guys, Wrangle Star, thank you very much. Congratulations on 30K. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your support. So you guys are just joining us. Let's do this. Let's go to... What am I looking at here? I'm confusing myself. Okay, we're going to go back to the European control run here, and we're going to show everybody, because we're going to do this again. This affects everybody along the West Coast. Surface temperature anomaly. We'll do this in Fahrenheit right now. And I want to show you what the models have been hinting at. Oh, back up here to the 12Z run. There we go. So this is what the models have been hinting at here. You'll clearly see this come along here. Eventually I'll get there. The very cold signal is starting to show up in some of the models here. I mean, look at this. You're looking at temperatures 30 degrees below normal here towards the end of January for some areas. Now, I caution you, of course, like I said, this is a fantasy forecast, but the models are showing it. You just have to be careful, because as everybody knows here across Pacific Northwest, you need the right trajectory of this air to bring snowfall to the region. But this looks like it's going to barrel down all the way into California, Nevada. I mean, look at that, all the way down to Arizona. There's some below average temperatures well down into Mexico on this run here. Western half of North America here, pretty locked in that cold air there as you go through. This would be off. I mean, you're still looking off into January 26th at this point. There's the 27th. There's the 28th. So yeah, we're still a ways out here. You're still talking about 10 plus days out in the forecast. Wrangle Star, thank you very much. Signed photo giveaway. Yeah, I'm probably going to do that. My daughter keeps pushing me to do that, and I think it's a good idea. And, you know, so I'll probably end up doing that here shortly. I hear some creeks are raging down there in California. Up to 2 feet of snow in the high elevations, mountains of Southern California. Check out the winter storm warning in SoCal mountains. Okay, let's look at that here really quick here. I think there's, oh, there is actually. No, isn't there? Did this one just come out? till 4 a.m. Tuesday. It may have just come out here. Additional 1 to 3 feet locally higher, 4 feet gusting Sierra Nevada. This is still okay. So we're still looking at that's a little bit. I think that's an overlap there. Let's go down here because this is going to include. Okay, snow. This is more accurate for Southern California here. Okay, winds gusting 50 miles per hour. That's what I saw in a lot of the ensembles there. San Bernardino County, Riverside County mountains through 4 a.m. Tuesday. Total snow accumulation by Tuesday morning, 3 to 8 inches, 5 to 6,000 feet, 8 to 15, 6 to 7, and 1 to 2 feet above 7,000. So that's not a bad winter storm out there for sure. Snow levels generally between 5 and 7,000 feet. Not a lot of area, but still, that's definitely noteworthy for Southern California. What do I mean by cold signal? Where, as you can see here, this is what I mean. You can see that the maps are kind of showing this very cold air setting up over here. And I'll show you what happens here. So if you watch here closely, you can see this Arctic high right here across the Northwest Territories in the Yukon, Alaska, BC here. And I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this here. We're going to go on to Pacific Northwest here a bit. But this is high pressure here. And this is troughing here as a result of this Arctic air pushing down into BC here. So this is what's going to be driving this cold air here. Now we're going to bounce back out again here. Now this ridging out over the ocean here, this is kind of the signal that what we're looking for there. You can see this ridging out here, and we're going to be getting some north flow on the back side of this, and potentially a couple rounds of some cold air could be moving through here if the models are right. But right now we're just kind of looking at the signal out in the extended forecast here. It looks like there's going to be some high pressure here across the Aleutian Islands, allowing that north flow into the Pacific Northwest. So we're just kind of watching that right now. Well, that's actually a good question. So we'll go to U.S. regions. We'll go to Northwest here. We'll go to temperature, surface temperature, and we're just going to go to Fahrenheit directly. So put that in motion. You'll clearly see the colder air start to come down shown there. The Funky Monkey, thank you very much for your generosity. Now you can see this very cold air over BC here, but you can see Seattle, 23. Look at that. Portland, 19 down there. Look at the temperatures down into California too. Even the valley, pretty chilly down there into California as well. Sierras, Nevada, Eastern Oregon, Eastern Washington, below 0 Fahrenheit there. It's kind of wild. And then look at that as you go on in through Sunday, January 29th. I mean, just brutal cold. This would be a true Arctic outbreak here across Pacific Northwest. And I mean, look at the Valley of California in that. This is just purely fantasy. We're just trying to do this for entertainment right now. This is not a forecast. I need to stress that over and over again because somebody's going to take my word for gospel here. And I don't think you're going to see 20s all the way down into Sacramento here. But it's entertainment right now. It's just kind of fun to watch the models show this. This will ebb and flow and change, and this will balance out as we get closer to this potential cold as what's coming up here. But I don't think you're going to be below 0 for much of Nevada here. But it's just kind of an interesting signal showing up. Well, the Weather Channel 10-day forecast, what I'm showing you here is not an accurate forecast right now. I would not take these temperatures seriously. And it's showing temperatures 8 degrees colder by January 29th, just because they're just trying to, they're just kind of hedging bets basically at that point. So if we go to the mean and we go back to the 12Z here, this is going to be much more. If you're looking for the likelihood of actual temperatures here as you go on through the extended there, you can see some chilly temperatures around, Seattle down into the 30s, near freezing, Portland. But you can see a much more realistic look at things here versus below zero temperatures across places east of the Cascades and whatnot. But you can see some pretty chilly air into BC, eastern Washington, all the way down towards Nevada, eastern Oregon, shown there. Willamette Valley around freezing there. This is going to be much more accurate at this range. This is surface temperatures, correct. Yeah, it's a fantasy forecast, but there is a signal. So it's not purely just fantasy. We do have some, albeit slight, confidence that we are headed towards a colder pattern at the end of January. GFS 0Z is almost running. Good update there. Let's take a look. And we'll back out of here. We'll go to maps, GFS. Yeah, let's let this run out and see what happens. We'll look at 18,000 feet first. Storm 1. Storm 2 for the Pacific Northwest clips California, ridging, and we get a break, especially for California, even though this isn't going to be a break for the Pacific Northwest there as we go through the next weekend, which is a shame. I could bring a convergence zone across western Washington there, though. Then the ridge starts to build here, and then we carve this trough out across the southwest. Take a look at what that means here in a moment. Another system here. Now, what does this high do? Does it retrograde? Yeah, I mean, it starts to look a little funky there at the end of the run. But you can see what I mean here. If this happens, you're going to bring more of a windstorm potential across Pacific Northwest versus pure Arctic air. You need this trajectory to be closer to the coastline here versus too far out over the water there. But this ridging here is kind of all that I'm concerned about right now. Meaning there's probably a pattern change coming at the end of January with this ridging out here. Will that mean more of a storm track, Arctic air? We just don't quite know yet. Yes, this would generally be below average precipitation with this kind of storm track coming up here. Because as you guys know, when we get the atmospheric rivers / Pineapple Express coming in here, we get much more moisture. The subtropics start to visit us here on the West Coast. And when you're bringing down systems out of the north, they're kind of moisture starved, even though they are colder. Now, this isn't a bad run, though. I mean, you have the ridging out here, and it's showing kind of that northwest flow coming down, maybe westerly flow. But that's all we're looking at right now. You're not going to gather much from individual GFS runs at this range, too much anyway. Which windy model do you like best? I would probably stick with the European when you can. Like I usually live on the European. You can see my windy map here with the European there. And what are we at 9 p.m. now? You can see these winds starting to kick up across Southern California there. It's a pretty nice looking map here. I mean, that's pretty chilly for California. Look at this Los Angeles metro down here is what? Just into the upper 40s, lower 50s here. Oxnard is right around 50. So I know people are fully bundled up there across Southern California for sure. It's got to be. I mean, look at San Diego, even low 50s. People getting hypothermia out there in those temperatures. Pretty nice southeast winds right along the coastline here too, up towards Big Sur as well. Does historical data of past temperatures or weather events factor into forecast modeling? Well, yeah, it takes that into account. I mean, that's basically how we learn. You know, we take past systems and how they interact and what kind of readings we have from them and what kind of observational data, and we feed that into computers and it pumps out our current forecast models. Well, I have the premium version of Windy here because I use it in a commercial fashion. So I don't know if the European is accessible if you do not have the premium version. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's probably, I mean, I know that if it's in the, I mean, look at this. What is it? You're looking at La Habra at 50 degrees. I know that's just freezing people. I mean, it's funny because it's not going to hurt anybody, but it's just kind of, I know how the Southern California people are dealing with those temperatures down there. That's pretty cold. Arizona going to get cold this week. Flagstaff 15 inches of snow today and rain in Phoenix. Love your weather analysis. Lived in Gresham, Oregon many years with gorge winds and ice storms during the winter. Yes, indeed. Welcome from Phoenix. It's crazy because actually looking at my analytics on this channel, I actually have more viewers from Phoenix than I do from Spokane, Washington, if you can believe that. Euro is on the free version. Well, that's a nice feature. NOAA. Yeah, let's take a look at that too. Let's take a look at what it's saying here as we go out a little bit here. So 3 to 4 week temperature. Yeah. Okay. This was issued on the 13th. So this is not that old either. You can kind of see hinting at that West Coast cool temperature range, and then you can see 3 to 4 week precipitation outlook. So yeah, that includes California as well, Pacific Northwest above average. I have not looked at this yet as well, so that's always good to view that. This will be interesting to look at here too. Let's see. So temperature, slight, precip, nothing showing up too much just yet. So the National Weather Service is not really latching on to much of this activity, as you can see. Kind of showing that for the southwest portion of the U.S. though. And maybe I'll even do an Arizona briefing coming up here. If that storm kind of digs out that trough across the region down there, it could get kind of abnormally chilly across the southwest. So maybe I'll do a briefing on that too. Spread the news in Spokane. I mean, I do have a lot of viewers in Spokane, but I just found it interesting that I did have a lot of viewers in Phoenix. My mom lives in LA and she pulls her down jacket out when it gets down to 60. Yep, I remember living down there. I remember when it was in the 50s one time and people were going crazy. Central Valley would be interesting to get in the low 20s. Yeah, that would probably be a 1 in 10 plus year event for sure. I just got here. We're going to get windy. We don't have any big windstorm coming up just yet across Pacific Northwest anyway. Actually, let's back out and look at that though. Let's do this. Let's look at surface wind, gust, swath, miles per hour, and we'll do the GFS since it just stopped running here. I kind of wanted to see this. You can see a decent gusts all the way down through Southern California up the coastline here. Anything coming up here for the Pacific Northwest? A little bit with that frontal system midweek. Nothing too crazy showing up in the GFS. I really don't like using the GFS for high wind speeds. It really does quite poorly. So we're looking at 10 days here. It doesn't look like any wind storm is in the cards right now, but that can change rapidly this time of year. Plus the GFS is generally really kind of a trashy model when it comes to peak wind gusts. It does really poorly, especially the ensemble runs. Maybe I'll show an example of that here really quick too. So if we go to, we're going to do, we'll do San Francisco and we'll do GFS deterministic. Actually, nope, we need the ensemble, sorry. And we need 6-hour max wind gust here. Now we're going to duplicate this map and we're going to go to the European ensemble and we're going to go to 6-hour max wind gust here. And you can just see here, I mean, the GFS just utterly every single time it underdoes what kind of wind speeds are coming through the area. And the European generally underdoes things as well. You're probably going to get some gusts up around 40 miles per hour across San Francisco as you go on in through Monday. But look at the GFS. I mean, it's just kind of a worthless model. The ensemble mean, it says about 23 miles per hour. Does anybody believe that when this, as the system's going through, that you're only going to get a 23 mile per hour gust in San Francisco? It's basically unusable. I mean, there's one model in here with the gust. There's one ensemble with the gust over 40 miles per hour. So it's really kind of a disappointing model in a lot of ways, frankly. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody's going to try to slam me for that. But the GFS is kind of trashy at a lot of things. Brad was in Irvine, California when they hit their record low of 35. That was probably a freak show. Actually, it doesn't look too bad tomorrow. Let's check that. A look at that. Let's go to, we're going to do a high resolution model look at things here. And we're going to do the entire west, the NAM 3KM. Actually, let's do precipitation, composite reflectivity. This is what the Doppler radar may look like as we go. So you kind of see Washington dry out into tomorrow morning. And if that happens, I might go out and try to take some pictures of some killer whales out in the Puget Sound. But there goes the system finally getting out of there through California. And then kind of a weak frontal system moving through there on Tuesday night. And a stronger frontal system for the Pacific Northwest moves through as we go through Tuesday night into Wednesday. That one's got some nice segments in it all the way down the Oregon coast. So it's going to bring some decent rainfall with it, although it should be fairly short-lived. It's no atmospheric river or anything of that nature. But it looks like tomorrow, let's go back up. Here's Monday late morning. It looks like it's not going to be bad across western Washington, Oregon. Maybe a little bit of light rain as you go through Monday night, but not a big deal. Where are you located and how was the drive from SoCal back up north? It was kind of crazy going back north on I-5 there. There was some construction in some pretty sketchy places driving northbound there. Coming up over the Grapevine there as well. There was some, it looked nice and green though. I mean, it looked like it had been getting rainfall for sure. You guys, some funny comments showing up here. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. You know, it was kind of sketchy when we were rounding the curve down here in Southern California going towards Santa Barbara on 101. Just that heavy rain and a bunch of steep cliffs around and stuff like that. Probably not the smartest thing to be doing out there, but it was very interesting. But I probably won't be chasing an atmospheric river ever again. Yeah, Debbie Nelson, it is pretty typical. Yeah, but tomorrow and Tuesday look like it might be dry, I believe. When does that come in here? That next stronger frontal system starts rolling in Tuesday evening. That stronger frontal system here, though, that'll bring some gusty winds. It'll probably gust around 30 in Seattle or so, but it will bring precipitation across the Pacific Northwest. And it's even going to clip California, too, as it moves through. And in fact, we can back out a little bit more. We'll go to the lower resolution NAM 12KM here. We can go out another full day, and you can see that front. It's going to bring another bout of moderate rain to California, but it's not going to be prolonged here, so that one's not going to be too bad. But it's going to bring a little bit additional snowfall across the Sierras also, I believe, as we go on in through Wednesday and Thursday. But we're going to dry out really across a lot of the West Coast after this system here, except for probably places like BC and Western Washington. There's going to be a system kind of moving over the top of that ridge, it looks like. Yeah, so what else is going on out there? Let's take one more look at things here. You got that storm system moving into Southern California as we speak. The low pressure system over western Washington. Here comes that energy out there. It's going to bring that front through the Pacific Northwest. That'll be the last system to move through California. But this is the really big, last big rainmaker on its way right now. Infrared satellite imagery here. Basically, what you're looking at here is cloud top temperature. This measures tops of the clouds, and the colder they are usually means the cloud top is higher, which can usually mean, for example, more severe weather, especially when you're dealing with like a cumulonimbus cloud, which extends sometimes from near the surface all the way to 40, 50,000 feet in the atmosphere here. It's very useful to look at an infrared satellite image and see just how cold the cloud tops are, because it gives you an idea just how high those cloud tops are and how strong the updrafts are, etc. It's the Sierra, not the Sierras. Would you flee from an atmospheric river? Well, no, not really. I flew down there to chase one, so. Yeah, I don't know why the GFS does poorly with the wind gusts. I wish I knew that answer. I don't know enough to answer that question, though, about it. Yeah, the next thing I chase will be something here in Washington, Oregon, or I mean, or they'll be out in the Great Plains here once springtime arrives, because I'll be out there several times this year. And hopefully you guys will join me on some live streams out there. The goal is to try to get a live stream when I have a good tornado on the ground out there and see, give you guys a first-hand view of it. Tarzana. I don't recognize that name, so I'm not sure. Yeah, the GFS could use more funding for sure. More computing power is always good. More funding is always good. They do give it a lot of tasks. And it's just kind of the stepchild of weather models when you compare it to the European anyway. It's just something that's not, they put a lot of time into the computing power of the European, and they're very detailed with it. After Oxnard, we drove back towards 101, and we actually drove back across I-5, across the Grapevine, and then back up the valley there. And then back towards Santa Cruz and to San Francisco. And we actually flew out that night. Yeah, that was a crazy chase out there. I mean, it was very fun. I'll never forget the way that smelled. You could just smell the topsoil that had been removed off the hillsides and, brought down in the creeks and the rivers. You could really smell it. It was very intense. And you could really see it out in the ocean too. Washington Weather. Ben is here from Washington Weather Chasers. He's one of the big time storm chasers up here in Washington State. He goes and chases tornadoes out in the plains also as well when springtime comes. What we were just talking about there. As well as Garrett Hartung. He joins me. Him and Ben have joined me out in the plains. We chase tornadoes out there. And Ben from Washington Weather Chasers and Garrett, we all went down to Southern California there chasing that atmospheric river. You probably didn't go through Tarzana. It's in the San Fernando Valley, part of LA. Yeah, hopefully it was entertaining. Didn't see anybody get hurt, so that's always a plus, and that's really what matters. What time is it? Oh, it's not. Well, it is a Sunday night here, and I have to put my kids to bed here shortly, otherwise they're never going to go to sleep. So I'll probably end the chat here in a minute or two, but we'll just do a quick roundup here. That was the most recent GFS there. The European has kind of been hinting at a colder signal coming up here. The GFS has been pointing at it as well. I'll be interested to see what the GFS is the mean running right now. It's out to, let's see. So the GFS mean, it's not quite far enough out there yet, but yeah, it's still, I just want to caution about when I talk about the snow potential coming up or the cold air potential, it's still fantasy right now. It's just kind of a signal that the models are showing us. But let's back up a little bit here just for one more roundup here. And you can kind of see this high pressure setting up over the Gulf of Alaska. And that's what we're kind of looking at here. We're trying to see if this is actually going to come to fruition towards the end of January here. Would bring some much colder air across western portions of North America there, all the way down the West Coast. And would keep us quite active there. So it'll be interesting to see if this does come into fruition here. They are draining Lake Powell. Interesting. Yeah, I like that signal this morning's European. Hopefully it starts to catch on to this. I wouldn't mind another snow event here through end of January. The sooner the better. We're in peak season here if we can get some cold air down here. West Coast weather is here also. I think he has a new YouTube channel as well. Washington Weather Chasers has a YouTube channel also. Fluffy fantasy forecast. Yeah, I mean, do we even want to do this? Let's see. Hold on. Let's zoom in here. This is going to be really irresponsible here, but okay, that's not bad. It's not showing too much snow for Seattle yet, but you can see like maybe Tacoma southward through there. So anyway, I mean, yeah, just know that we're potentially looking at a colder signal. This doesn't mean anything as far as snowfall. We don't know how cold it's going to get, anything like that. We're looking at 12, 13 days out. So it's just something to get a little bit excited about right now, but not a big deal just yet. All right, Debbie Nelson, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, so I'm gonna end the live stream now, and I'm gonna go put my kids to bed and whatnot. I'll probably do one again in a couple of days. We'll do another one if this thing starts to trend and we start to look like we're gonna get colder in the 10-day period or so. I'll do another live stream here coming up this week as well. Yeah, no problem. Thanks. I'm glad I can do these forecasts. I'm glad they're helping people down there in California as well. I might do one for Arizona even down here in the next few days as well, as it keeps trending. Looks like it's going to be some active weather down there also. But anyway, okay. Yeah, so I'm going to end the live stream now, and I hope you guys are having a good night, and I'll talk to you guys in tomorrow's briefings.